Okay, welcome back to more Crystal Lake interviews. And today we're talking the Dark Tide 12 anthology, Hunted Highways. And our guests are the authors in that anthology, Rowland Bercy, Lucas Mangum, and Carver Pike. And
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
yeah, I
Hello, hello.
successfully pronounced their names right. So, yay.
Yes, and you got the title of the anthology right as well. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
Hunted Highways, not Haunted Highways,
yeah, exactly.
despite what it might, despite it being in the horror genre.
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and tell everyone who you are. So, Roland, you go first.
Hi, everybody. Rowland Bercy Jr., author of Unbortion, which was my debut novella, which won the 2020 American Fiction Awards. Um, I have a few other stories under my belt. Payback as a Witch, Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder, and Dr. Parasite. And I've been writing for about 3 or 4 years now and having a good time and meeting a lot of nice and interesting people. So.
Okay, Carver, give us your introduction.
Hey, everybody. I'm Carver Pike. I'm the author of Faces of Beth. My most recent one is Kin of the Fallen. It's my slasher versus motorcycle club book. Grad Night, Diablo Snuff series, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, Lucas, your turn.
Yes, I am the author of Gods of the Dark Web and the Splatterpunk Award nominated novella Saint Sadist. My most recent book is Blade Job, which is a horror slash wrestling kind of mashup. Involves blood rituals and all that fun stuff. And yeah, I live in Austin, Texas, and I've been writing horror, publishing horror, I guess, for the past 12 years.
Yes.
Cool. So, first question is, how did you get involved in the project?
I'll start that one off if that's okay. So I was actually on a road trip when I was on my way to Myrtle Beach with the wife, kids, and Joe reached out to me about it, about writing in the series, and then and was telling me we could, choose other authors to be part of it and stuff. So I just immediately thought of these guys. I mean, I was in the Written and Read podcast with Roland and Aaron Beauregard and Daniel Volpe. Aaron and Daniel had written some stuff together already, and I'd always thought that Roland and I should be in some kind of project together, so it just made sense. Lucas and I were already working on a book together, so I reached out to him right away too, and we just started putting it all together.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, so both of you all jumped on board with the project as soon as you were invited then.
Yeah. I mean, we did kind of work out some of the details, like what we wanted the theme to be, because I know for some of these books, you don't necessarily have to have a theme. I believe in that those are the guidelines. You could have a theme if you wanted to, but you didn't necessarily have to. We wanted to have a theme just to make it a little more unified, and I don't know. I can't remember which one of us said it, but I mean, I've always wanted to do like kind of a road trip horror kind of story, just because I think a lot of interesting stuff can happen out on the road, and I figured we just kind of go with that.
Yeah. And it was pretty fun because once we got started with the theme, which came to us pretty easy, I mean, it just seemed like the stories just meshed well all together. And we worked well together as a group. After we got our theme together, we set up a group chat and we're constantly in communication with each other just to compare ideas and think about what we wanted to do for the collection. It was fun.
Okay, so give everyone a little overview of the novella. So we'll start with Lucas this time.
All right, so mine is called Dracula and the Devil Walk into a Bar, and it's kind of a I don't know, comic book splatter influenced kind of story about just like I mean, it's all in the title, really. I mean, anything what you can imagine, and then hopefully some things that subvert your expectations. That you can imagine, or when you hear that title, it probably happens in that book, and then hopefully some things you don't expect.
Awesome.
Okay, so Carver, give us a peek at your novel.
Mine is called Road Wrath, and it's about a group of high school graduates that are going to check out a college campus, like one of the college tours. and on the way they stop at a rest stop and bump into this creepy old couple that's kind of like wicked cult members that things just kind of go downhill from there. A curse and just some sick stuff that goes on from there. That's pretty much it without giving too much away.
Yeah.
Okay, and Roland, what about you?
So mine is B.I.R.D.S, and it's the concept is not so much in the title. A little bit, I guess it is. I was inspired. Like every time I would go to the store, there would be hundreds of birds on the wires outside, and I was like, "That's freaking crazy!" And it felt like a scene out of a movie. And then there was like a well-known conspiracy theory that I like and fits the story. So without saying too much, that's my story.
Okay, so the theme of the anthology is road trip horror, and that entails, unknown places, interacting with strangers. So, what particular aspect of that theme appealed to you?
I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
My family and I always go on road trips, and it's a freaking nightmare. So I just thought it'd be like a fun concept to write on, and I think that's why I was interested in doing it, and also so I think that's my major thing is that we always took road trips together and had a good time, even though it was a nightmare in the process.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Oh God.
Yeah, family road trips always come with issues.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
definitely.
yeah.
I get all kinds of story ideas while I'm on road trips, and
Oh,
to me, rest stops are just creepy. Like they're especially when you go late at night, they're always very quiet. You might have a couple of 18-wheelers parked out in the parking lot, and it's just too quiet. Sometimes there's that creepy guy that's like cleaning the bathrooms and stuff that's around. So I use a little bit of that in the story and stuff. And so mine, it doesn't all revolve around a rest stop, but it kind of starts there, I would say. And yeah, my idea was actually something totally different in the beginning. I had a whole other concept that was like cosmic horror and stuff in it, and I tried writing it out, and it just wasn't working for this project. Like I think it might need to be a full-length novel or something at some point, but I wound up switching it to this theme, and it just worked a lot better. And so yeah, I actually got the idea on the road trip, but
you're bold to be stopping at rest stops. Oh heck
Yeah.
no!
I was going to say there was a guy cleaning the bathroom. I mean, geez, like.
I don't have a choice. When I go on road trips, my wife uses the bathroom every 30 minutes. Like
There's a tree every 15 yards, so she can go behind a tree.
You tell her that. She's not.
Tell Jules I said that.
Yeah, you tell Jules that.
I'll tell her when I see her next time. Lucas.
Yes. I would just like to point out as someone from Nova Scotia, trees and woods have their own sort of creepy vibe to them
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's kind of true too. Yeah.
okay, so what appealed to you, Lucas, about the whole road trip horror theme?
I mean, similar things as the other two. I mean, I've been on a few road trips, most of them with family, a few with friends, but they're always a mixed bag. They can be great, usually when they're over, and then other times they can be kind of frightening, and yeah, like Carver said, your mind does wander, and you do kind of just start thinking about stuff. Like it's like, I don't know, there's, especially if you're just like traveling on the road in places that you just haven't been, like, everything is just so defamiliarized. Like they have like these gas stations that just have different names that are not like the ones that are in your neighborhood or whatever. Like like you see like Pilot gas stations. I swear I only see those if you're like
In West Virginia.
Yeah.
I was at one yesterday.
Yeah. See, I don't have any by me, but if I go like if I go on the interstate and I'm just traveling around down south, there's I'm bound to see a ton of them.
Yeah.
And then you do like embarrassing things like eating at a Shoney's, which that's a whole horror story in and of itself.
Okay, so you guys touched on this a little bit, but what were the inspirations behind your stories?
Mine, I was driving down the street. We were going to I think we were actually going to the town where the college is based in this story. I think I said it was in Morgantown, West Virginia,
Nice.
and we were driving there, and we do a lot of medical visits and stuff out there. And I saw this old couple driving a pickup truck that had this, the old, I guess you'd say 70s style campers that are just metal.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
the old rickety metal campers. Somebody was pulling one of those, and I just got the idea, like, what if they were members of a cult and there was just some kind of creature in that camper, and the story just wouldn't like leave me alone, and I was planning to write it out as a novel at some point, and it was just perfect for this. So that's where my idea came from, was actually seeing something similar to what I wrote about in the story.
Yeah. And that's funny that you said that this is something you wanted to write about in the past, because with the birds out at the stores, like seeing hundreds of them, I said I've always wanted to write a story involving birds, like flocks and flocks of birds. So I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to do that. And my story is based on a group of friends going to like a weekend cabin in Slidell, Louisiana, to visit like the Honey Island swamp. So I was like, birds combined with a swamp, like that's the perfect creepy setting. So I just thought
Definitely.
it was so good. I enjoyed it, and like the story came to me with ease. Usually I have a hard time writing. Carver, you know that. But this one I was like, ooh, I can do this, and then I can do that, and it just works good. So it all worked out.
Yeah, I used to work overnights, and here in Austin we have these birds called grackles. They're extremely loud and kind of weird, but they're like you'll drive by them. I would drive by them at like 6 a.m. to go home, and because they're just waking up, like you would be going through. It sounded like you were going through some kind of weird wind tunnel, like these, like
Wow.
you just hear these birds in your ear. So that's what your story kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of.
Nice.
But the inspiration for my story was like a few years ago. There were a couple places. So a few years ago, I was watching this, this compilation of trailers that were like horror movies from the 70s, and I tried coming up with some, and they all had these like outrageous titles, right? Like like
Yeah.
like blood-sucking freaks or whatever. So I just like started writing down a list of like what my potential titles would be, and then I started thinking about how I always wanted to do like a Dracula story, because like I obviously love that novel and some of the original films, and I came up with Dracula and the Devil, but then like I was like, I didn't have a story, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep that in my back pocket. And then this opportunity came up, and I remembered how there was I used to go on these road trips with my dad and my brothers, and we would always, it was from San Diego to Yuma, Arizona, and there was this rest stop in I can't even call it a town, like it was like an census designated place, like I think is how I describe it in the story. And because I mean so the location of my story is based on a real place, but it doesn't have the same name. But this rest stop is just like a bar and like a small convenience store and some gas pumps. Like it's just really remote in the middle of the desert. And I had always wanted to write a story there set there, and I was like, okay, so we've got this road trip thing, and then I started thinking about my little list of titles, and I was like, okay, Dracula and the Devil is a cool title, but what if I added something kind of to it that's more like one, more eye-catching, and then two, like more in line with the theme of this story. And I was like, all right, so Dracula and the Devil walk into a bar.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of your stories have sort of a familiar sort of a setting to them in one way or another, and yet you're throwing in those creepy sort of otherworldly horror elements. So what was your process for crafting a sense of dread into the familiar?
For me, I think I used my location, like the Bayou, Louisiana. I grew up in New Orleans, so I was born and raised in New Orleans, but I used to spend my summers in Slidell, Louisiana. And like my cousins, they would take us walking deep into the swamp or bayous. And there was one part I remember, like we walked up on this graveyard, and it was completely old. Like it was like maybe a family graveyard or something, and they had crypts above the ground, and one of them was broken in. And just those experiences, like walking through the bayou with my cousins, and the thought of alligators, which my greatest fear of dying is being eaten by an alligator or a shark. So I think that's what I use to set kind of the dread in my story is the location.
Okay, so Carver, what about you? How did you establish the dread?
Yeah, I mean, location played a big part of it. That's one of the beautiful things about living in a place like West Virginia, where there's like all these back roads and old hollers and just the old churches and stuff like that. And so I also liked playing with the idea of how simple stuff that you can do can totally I mean, just screw up everything. I mean, and you can't really take it back. So, for example, the story starts. Um, just to start it out with like an action pack kind of pacing and stuff like that. There's a creature chasing these people, and how it all starts is with these people in a rest stop. The one of the bigger guys is walking into the bathroom and kind of accidentally bumps shoulders with an old man. And of course, the old man turns around and has words for him. And then his wife comes up and says a little something. And it's like if you had just kept your mouth shut and been polite and said, hey, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm sorry, and walked on, everything might have been fine. But most people don't do that. You say something back, or you kind of have a snappy remark back and stuff. And once that's out, you can't really take that back. And kind of the same thing with these college kids. They're all cool, kind of pretty cool and collected kids, but when the old people come around and are kind of rude to them, they're witty with their comebacks and stuff too. And it's like that again. It's just like if you just kept your mouth shut, everything probably would have been fine, but you didn't, and now you're stuck in this situation. So I like that there's this creepy old couple in this strange location, creepy dread filled location already, and then you're in that situation where you've kind of done something that you could have avoided altogether, but it just keeps adding on to the situation and getting worse and worse. So
Nice, that makes sense.
Okay. So what about you,
Yeah,
Lucas? How did you do the dread?
for me, it was just all about expectation. Like I think I've got this setting that's really remote, and then I cut from that setting and its characters, to Dracula and the devil on the road, having just escaped hell after their fortress burns down or whatever, and and it's like we know who Dracula and the devil are. We know that when they show up,
bad things are going to happen. And so we've got these, just kind of knowing what's coming, or at least thinking we know what's coming, kind of builds the dread there. And then, and then in the final act, I hopefully subverted the expectations a little.
Nice.
Okay, so what do you think your readers will enjoy most about your novella?
I think with mine, it's just that the tension doesn't really let up. It just keeps going and going and ratcheting up and getting, they get deeper and deeper into it. It pretty much doesn't let up once it starts. So, and I think that that's a lot of fun when the pacing is, I think it's pretty quick, fast paced. I hope I did a good job with that.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, I think it's just the level of carnage that unfolds when it really does hit the fan. I think is something that people are going to get a kick out of, especially they're not the Dracula and the devil are not the only two characters from horror's rich history that show up in this story. So things get a little crazy, and I don't know. I'm really excited for people to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about you, Roland? What do you think readers will enjoy most about your story?
I have a couple of twists and turns in there that they won't see coming, I don't think. I've had someone who read the story and they said the ending stayed with them because I think she just didn't expect it to go there. So I think the twists and turns in mine and unexpected surprises.
Well, it sounds like we got a nice array of stuff to look forward to.
Definitely.
So, what was the most difficult part for you for writing the story, or did it go smoothly and you had no difficulties?
For me, I had a hard time. Just I don't know. It's for some reason I'm one of those people that when there's a deadline, it just kind of gets in my head, and I just put it off out of some like weird leftover teenage defiance or something. And so, you know, all the challenges were things that I could have avoided had I started my story a little bit sooner. Basically.
Oh, yeah, the
yeah.
dreaded procrastination.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so what about you, Carver? Did you have any difficulties?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the same thing. As I'm mostly an indie horror. I mean, other than doing anthologies, I don't usually publish with a publishing company, so deadlines aren't usually something I have to worry about unless it's a self-imposed one. So same type of thing, and it's kind of the same with any anthology. Like I know there's that date coming up. I know there's usually some kind of word count that they're expecting to, and it's like, okay, I'm not quite there. I need to get, add some more to it, or that part of it, that aspect of it, where when I'm doing my own thing, I don't have to worry about that. So yeah, definitely that.
Nice.
Okay, so what about you, Roland? Did you have any trouble writing the story, or did it just flow?
I kind of came pretty easy. I'm surprised. I struggle with deadlines myself, but because I didn't want to, I know I had other people kind of relying on me, Carver and Lucas, well, everybody. I didn't want to procrastinate. So I think I may have even taken a day off work and just sat down and wrote for 8 hours that day. And that's something I don't do. I'm a slow writer as it is. So I was like, I refuse to get myself in this position. Sorry, Lucas and Carver.
Quite all right.
I hear you,
So-
man. This was the first year that I've taken on several anthologies all at the same time, with all very close deadlines, and I was just like, "Oh, what'd you do? What'd you do?"
That is stressful.
Apparently, Roland was writing to not have problem with a deadline, and you two were putting it off.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, part of it is also like I don't write as fast as I used to, and I think like part of me is still like, oh, I can still bang that out in a couple of weeks, and it's just no, I cannot.
No.
Okay, so what was your favorite part of writing the story? Do you have a favorite character or a favorite scene or something like that?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mine would be the ending. The ending, and I say this is a 2023 or 24, because I guess 24, reimagining of The B.I.R.D.S by Alfred Hitchcock. And I asked somebody, I was like, am I pompous for saying that? And she was like, no, because that's what it is. So I won't say I don't know if it's as good as the original Birds, but for me, the ending was probably my favorite part. I kind of knew I wanted to go there, but when I got towards the end of the book, I was like, is it possible to do it without making it seem weird or just like it doesn't fit? But then it just kind of flowed right into it. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, this is working out. So.
I think just the banter between Dracula and the devil was fun to write for me, because I just kind of envisioned them as just like a couple of bros just being kind of broy and stupid.
I mean, you have a great pair right there, Dracula and the devil.
Yeah.
There's some room for some amazing interaction between those two, and I think you brought it to life in your story.
And Lucas has such a cool writing style too, that it's almost like a Tarantino style.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
It's pretty cool.
Well, that's kind of what that story title reminded me of when I read it. It's like, that's the whole title even reads like a Tarantino movie. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And for me, I would say probably, I'm really into my faith and stuff like that, and so the story kind of went there without me really pushing anything like that. It's definitely not like a faith-based horror or anything like that necessarily, but it lent itself to being able to put in some elements of my faith and stuff in it, and I was excited about that. Like I really liked the ending and how that came about and stuff, and it just happened naturally, and so that was really cool for me.
Nice.
Okay, so what is it about horror that calls to you in general as a writer?
I think that we all have our own demons and monsters and stuff that we're fighting internally and in our past and things like that. And I just think that it's a way for us to slay those demons, on paper and in our stories. And sometimes we have to walk the readers through that, and you wouldn't you wouldn't believe how many people at least have told me that, our stories and stuff help with that kind of thing. So
Mm.
that's it for me, I think.
Okay, so Roland, what does horror appeal? What appeal does horror have for you?
I don't know. We just get to. We live in such a crazy and stressful and sometimes horrible world. So for me, when I'm writing horror, I get to get away from the madness and the politics and war and everything else. So for me, that's what it does. It takes me away from the everyday gloom and doom that I'm experiencing, that we're all experiencing in real life. So that's what appeals for me.
Okay, so what about you, Lucas?
Yeah, I think it's like a good avenue to kind of, I mean, at least, so what appealed to me the most, like as originally, like when I was a kid growing up, like I think horror, whether I was reading it or watching it, um, tended to just kind of give me a kind of grammar to talk about, yeah, like Carver said, like kind of things that were going on in my head and that I didn't quite know how to put into words or visualize. And I don't know, like it's kind of been there for me, as cheesy as that sounds. Like it's been there
Mm.
for me from a very young age, and I just I don't know. It's almost like I don't know, like family at this point.
Mm. No, I understand.
Okay, so what are you currently working on, and what's upcoming for you?
Roland, you want to take that one?
Yeah,
Oh, sure. Um,
throw him under the bus.
Nobody
I,
was talking, so I just figured.
Yeah.
I was gonna let Lucas go first.
Yeah,
But,
I figured since I just went, I didn't want to,
okay, I'll
go
go.
again, but I can. I totally can.
So I'm working on I love my audiobooks. And Carver, I just saw that you have Scalp out on audiobook. I'm
Oh,
so
cool.
excited.
Yeah, man, me too. That just came out like yesterday, I think, was when it hit audiobook.
I swear I have Scalp, which is one of Carver's books, at the top of my reading list, but I don't get to read these days. The only way I can consume books are by audiobooks. So congratulations on that, Carver.
Oh, thank you, man.
So for me, I'm working on the audio drama for Dr. Parasite. And it's gonna be real gross.
Cool.
So it'll have background music and sound effects. And if you guys know what it's about, but it's about parasites, of course. And you get some pretty nasty parts in there. So I'm excited about that. And then I also have a story about the Honey Island Swamp Monster, which is also a legend from New Orleans, or which is a legend from New Orleans, which is coming out in a collection called Folkloric. And then I'm doing one other thing, hopefully another shorter audiobook, My Supernatural Ex-Girlfriend, which I hope to have out sometime within the next couple of weeks.
You have awesome titles.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I don't know if I've ever told you that before, but
Oh, no.
like every
I
time I
appreciate
hear
it.
one of your titles, I'm like, that's a banger.
Thank you. Thank you. What you got,
Okay,
Lucas?
okay,
I am doing some edits on a book called Barn Door to Hell. It's a novella about an entity that is being kept in this barn to kind of help these farmers essentially have a prosperous harvest. And but then when it gets out, bad things happen,
Oh,
as they
nice.
often do in this genre. And it's again, like I've just been really grooving on these kind of stories that are really like fast paced and kind of just go nuts like by the last act.
Yeah.
And this is one of those stories. Hoping to put it out in April, but we'll see. We'll see how edits go.
Nice.
Yeah.
okay. So Carver, what do you have upcoming?
I'm finishing up Cannibal Caviar, the full length version of that, because that was a short story from when I did the Exits collection with Roland and Aaron Beauregard and Daniel Volpe. So I'm working on the full length version of that, and I'm hoping to have that out in time for Scares That Care in April.
Oh, cool.
Fingers crossed. I'm close, so I think I could probably do it. And then I'm also working on the prequel to Scalp, which is Scalp is my parasitic head lice book. So I'm working on the prequel to that. And those are probably the two projects that I'll have done soonest.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap the interview up here, and I'll let you guys tell everyone where they can find you and your books. So, Roland, you can go first.
Most of my stuff is available on Amazon. I also have a website, RowlandBercyJr.com, and you can kind of see some other stuff there. I got some like fan art and different concepts that I thought about for the books that didn't make it. So yeah, most of the stuff is there, and you can message me on Facebook.
Okay, so Carver.
All of my books are on Amazon and carverpike.com if you want signed copies of paperbacks. I have everything there. And I now have 4 books out on audiobooks, so I'm excited about that. So if you are on Audible and you like your audiobooks, I have Face of the Beth, Kin of the Fallen, Scalp, and Grad Night are all in audio format now. So I'm excited about that. I'm on all social media as Carver Pike.
Nice.
Okay, and Lucas.
Yeah, so I do a weekly newsletter at lucasmangum.substack.com, and I also yeah, that's kind of where you can stay up to date with me. And I also like sometimes occasionally will post like just personal essays on there, or occasionally some short fiction. And I have a podcast called Make Your Own Damn Podcast, where I talk with Jeff Burke, former editor of Deadite Press. He and I talk about movies and books and sometimes games, just anything that's either horror or a lot of times just independent DIY kind of stuff, as kind of a celebration of that sort of ethos. Um, and then, yeah, I also am in the process of opening up a store, lmhorror.bigcartel.com.
Nice.
Cool. So, and you can find the link to Haunted Highways down in the description below if you want to check out the book. So, that's all for now, and bye.